My guest today is Liz Entin. She's the author of WTF Just Happened, a sciencey skeptic. A scientist skeptic explores grief, healing, and evidence of an afterlife. She talks about her research on the possibility of life after death and experiences having readings done with psychic mediums as part of that research. Her journey investigating life after death began after the loss of her dad. She says she was blown away by the evidence that supports there being life after death. Today, we're going to talk about what that evidence is and the conclusions she came to. Welcome to my show, Liz.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So to start, give me the backstory on your dad's death and why and how you got started investigating life after death.
Yeah, so my dad passed, unfortunately, in 2015. I was raised atheist, skeptical, logical, and I was raised culturally Jewish, but never believed in God. I still actually don't. And I just, in that desperation, when it was clear nothing was going to work and he was going into hospice, I had a very first thought. And it was that so much of science fiction ends up coming true. Like, look at us on Zoom. If you look at old science fiction,
Yeah, Star Trek,
you see,
beam me up.
you see stuff like this, like constantly it's coming true. So I had a thought, well, if that's possible, could time travel be possible? So I started to delve into that. And what's absolutely mind blowing is it is possible. It's not practical, but theoretically, it's highly possible. In the sense that if we were to build a spaceship somehow and travel it close to the speed of light, and you took two twins. I'm going to have the exact timing and numbers wrong, but the concept right. So if you took two twins and you put one on this rocket ship traveling at close to the speed of light and the other stayed on Earth, the one twin, say 5 years would pass, who was on the rocket ship, and the one staying here, 20 years would pass. That's Einstein.
Got it. Yeah. But that's time travel. How and it's cool that you got an open mind and you're into. How did you what made you, did you want to know that your dad's in a good place, or did you not get to say last goodbyes?
Sorry, I thought you wanted me to tell the story of how I even.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
But no, I can jump. I just yeah. So then my next thought was, if time travel is possible, and the most, I'm sorry. I mean, I can not. It's just that I to go from even exploring it was as a possibility to thinking it was absolutely zero chance. That's what made me. That was the first thing that.
So I try to put myself in someone's shoes, get in their head. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? Like, your dad died. In that moment, did you I mean, or are you saying it was a long time after you didn't miss him? You were just thinking about space travel and time travel.
No, this was when he was sick, and it was clear he wasn't going to get better. And I felt a desperation. I mean, it was such a brutal confrontation with mortality. Just when you spend, yourself and everyone you love is going to die.
Yeah.
When you think there's zero chance that you'll ever exist again, it's so shattering.
Yeah. That's what really started you thinking about the whole, maybe there's more to life, or more to
Well, it started first with a desperation. I didn't think there was any chance of there being more to life. I just thought, what can I do while he was in hospice? So finding this out about time travel led to the next thought. If the thing that is the most factual, and this, I guess if you want me to get a little to the emotional state, I was just, shattered. The thought of never, ever again having one of the most important people in your life was just more than I could handle. And at the same time, again, never having any concept of anything that there could realistically be an afterlife. It just sort of it's like this confrontation of everything. Like, I'm gonna die one day. Like, all of death felt like so much more of a reality,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. And so the
So you
first thought that came to
started thinking about concepts like time travel and life after death.
well, I didn't even think about life after death right away. When I first thought of time travel, because life after death, I mean, that was just something that wouldn't even be a concept to think about. So the
Okay.
thought I had was, if time travel is possible, would there be some way to get into the future? Great, 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 great grandkids, take him
Hmm.
way into the future. And when medicine is a whole other level and people can, you know,
Oh, I see
and
now.
people can live a lot longer.
I understand
So,
now why you focused on time travel first or had that idea. So the idea would
yeah,
be he passes and then somehow tell me your logic with the time travel, what you were going to do. You knew he was going to die.
right. So
Go ahead.
well, he was in hospice. So it was a hope that somehow, someone way in the future could somehow get him from hospice, take him to 2000 years in the future when medicine's a whole other level and people are living a lot
Oh,
longer.
interesting idea.
Yeah.
In other words, not a one-way trip, but literally coming and going as needed. Let me go into the future now and heal myself, then I'll be back.
I don't think we would necessarily come back. I didn't know. I mean, it wasn't like I literally was like, this is as logical a plan as it is talking to the doctors with medicine, but
You
it
got
was
me to thinking, this is great. I love people who like you just stretched my mind for a little bit here. So an idea I had, I'm trying not to tangent off your
oh, go ahead.
but another one is this idea that we only see certain colors because we're looking at a certain frequency and we're only
Yep.
I mean it's overwhelming if we want to see everything at once. So another idea is there's this other dimension and we just cross over, do what we need to do, come back, and we didn't really leave. We're not
Hmm.
visible anymore to the
Yeah.
people. So maybe I could go there and get well and come back. And I didn't really leave. I just changed who can see me and what dimension or frequency I'm in. It can get it can get pretty deep here. That in the end, I think for whatever reason, we can't, most people can't see that. Some people can see ghosts. So, let's jump into, your evidence you found when you finally got to just focusing on afterlife or the topic of
Sure.
afterlife.
Well, it's
Yeah,
interesting because I also, oh, sorry, I
yeah,
did,
go ahead.
sorry.
What,
I thought of other dimensions too because I was reading about string theory. So all of that, yeah, that was kind of
yeah,
what got
cool.
me now
Yeah,
to the afterlife. So,
well, you distilled it down. Sounds like you had a process for, okay, so afterlife, tell me about your research on that. And I think it seems like you started with going to mediums, psychics.
that the very first thing, actually, it took me a while to get to mediums, but
Okay.
if you want to jump into that, I can kind of
No,
rush through
tell
what
me the
got me
other
there.
bits. Tell me the other bits. I'm gonna keep a wide mind now because I didn't know you were into it's cool. I didn't realize the time travel threw me for a little bit. I thought we were tangenting, but I get it now. Start wherever you
Yeah,
like.
the time travel was just the thought that the first thing that opened my mind to maybe the way we perceive reality. Once I learned about Einstein's theory of time relativity, the way we perceive reality is not as set in stone.
I
So,
had a whole course. There was an aerospace engineer, a whole semester on advanced physics that was nothing but what you're speaking of.
oh wow. So you know a bazillion times more than me on this.
Yeah, also it's kind of disappointing higher education, FYI.
Yeah.
You have a whole semester on this, and it's shocking how little they know. And in the end, like, why do we have a class on this? You guys just need to put us through torture because then you can fail the class because they don't know what they're talking about. These Einstein equations are, um, in fact, I think one of them recently they said is they rescinded or they're not really sure it's true. This whole idea that if you go faster than the speed of light, that blah blah blah. I think that comes into question. But in the end, here, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the idea.
Mhm.
Time travel.
Yeah. Yeah. If you go faster than the speed of light, that was part of what I was reading. You're like going backwards in time because information is stored in light. So, I mean, all of these were making me think the world.
Actually, not really. It's all relative speed. It's like when you're in an airplane and you get up to go to the lavatory. You could
Mhm.
be going 500 miles per hour and you're just walking down the aisle, right? Like the Earth's spinning
Right.
around the sun going 20,000 miles an hour or whatever the actual speed is. People out there probably can cite it.
Mhm.
I get other things to keep in my head. Point is, it doesn't seem like we're going 20,000 miles an hour. So that was the concept of the time and not quite literally. I think personally, time travel is more easier than that. I think it's like you were getting at. Let's just go into another dimension. It's kind of like you have a CD, and on that CD is a whole different time or book. Just flip to the page in the book. You don't need to go to the speed of light. I think it's more
Right.
simpler, yeah. Or
Oh,
to put it another way, there are more than one ways to time travel. Just like you could fly in an airplane or walk or go in a car. Maybe instead of going the speed of light, it's really hard to do, takes a lot of fuel or whatever. Just go there. We don't know, right?
I don't know.
It's good when people give an open mind, at least can have discussions and not get too bent on their, this is what I
Right.
believe. I respect it. Cool.
Right. Right.
Well, I got a different idea. Can we talk?
Exactly. And that's how.
So pick up where you are.
So afterlife. So my very next thought after all this of like quite a few weeks of time travel reading and string theory was at this point I assumed consciousness was created by our brain neurons. So I thought if consciousness is created by our brain neurons and that happens to create me one time, and at this point I thought you live once as one person, you're obliterated permanently. But then I started to think if you think of the concept of eternity, eternal big bangs, big crunches, the amount of Goldilocks planets in our that keep getting discovered, and if you think of it again, this just happening eternally with big bangs, big crunches, it seems almost impossible, probably probabilistically. I think I butchered pronouncing that word, but that another set of brain neurons would not come together and create another person, and you would get to experience being another person. Nothing spiritual like karma, but
Well, the Big Bang
uh,
Theory
con-
to me is it's a theory. People remember that. A lot of people don't. They forget the
right,
theory part. And to me, that's
right,
just a cop out explanation by academia. We have to teach kids something, and this is what we got. Makes the most sense. It's too bad that it actually gets beaten into their heads, like almost like this is a fact, and that they believe
right,
it because they're like, well, what other explanation could there be? And they stop thinking, like they just quit, stop.
right.
So, uh,
Yeah.
it just rattled the stuff off a lot of, on my mind tangents to a lot of, okay, I know what you mean,
Oh, no
but
problem.
there's another explanation for everything, right? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And to think that we know everything now too is ridiculous. But nevertheless, like I think a Big Bang, at least the concept that there's constantly universes and galaxies, whether they birth and die or, but so then I had that thought and I just had a flash of a thought. If that's the case, is there somehow, some way that I can't even begin to understand that any of these memories were stored and carried over? And
By
I
that you mean
Googled
like a
that.
reincarnation or stored and carried over into another body, time
Somehow,
travel or something.
I was thinking into another body. Like if you're a brain set of neurons created like me now as Liz, and let's say 500 years, another brain set of neurons came together and it got to be an experience I was experiencing of a totally different person. Is there somehow, some way in that any memories of being Liz could have transferred. I couldn't begin to understand how. And I Googled that. And that's when everything changed, because that was where I found the first solid set of evidence of an afterlife.
Cool.
And what I also usually call non-local consciousness, that our consciousness is not actually created by a brain. And there is where I found the research of doctors Jim Tucker and the late Ian Stevenson, or Dr. Ian Stevenson, I should say. They are professors of psychiatry at the University of Virginia. They are traditional psychiatrists, and they study cases of kids with past life memories from a fact-based methodology. And that was the most life-changing thing. So I delved in.
So that's a great word. I'm familiar with it. Non-localized. Explain that to people in terms of memories. Is your meaning the brain's not storing the memories? The memories are not in the brain or the body. They're outside the body, meaning non-localized. They're possibly everywhere, anywhere but in the body, or everywhere. Kind of like when you speak like we are now, the sound never really stops. It's propagating to space for eternity. You just can't hear it. So maybe you're even tapping into that. The same thing you're seeing right now. The light reflects off the ground. You see the mountains, but that reflection's going out into space for an eternity. Somebody else could see the mountains a billion years from now, just like you're seeing a star. We all forget, like, oh, the stars we're seeing in the sky, that light started hundreds of millions of years ago, right? And we're just seeing it. It could be something like that. There could be a lot of scientific explanations, but what Liz is saying is there's experts that are actually open-minded, and the term non-localized, that's what it means. Right, Liz?
Yeah, non-local. That is not created by a brain. Yeah, it's stored somewhere else and entangles with our brain, and for like this experience of being a person. So
well, your brain is just seeing things. It's just seeing it. It's not creating it. You just see in the sunset. You're not creating the sunset.
Right. Yeah, and we're seeing
storing that memory, so you think you're storing the memory. That's what we're talking about. Your experience, how I saw the sunset. I think I'm storing that someplace.
Yeah. And then also, as you touched upon too, we're just in this human experience, we're just seeing this tiny, like minuscule portion of reality, but that is limited by time, the location we're at, the way our bodies are made up, that we only visually see what's right in front of us at a certain distance, and only see, certain things on the color spectrum. And, that colors are just something our brain kind of makes up, but really they're just types of light reflection, like all these things. Yep. But at this point, I found these child psychiatrists who were studying cases of kids with past life memories, and they were getting positive results. They were matching up kids with people who'd passed away. I mean, they just were taking such a logical approach.
Now, is it the kids are the interesting subject matters because they're not old enough to have read history books and be pre-programmed with all the stuff they learned? Like, they don't know anything yet. They're so young. Is that the idea? They can't trick us. They don't know the answers. They're too young. Is that why it's an interesting population to study?
Exactly. I mean, and it's not even always as like a devious mindset of, oh, they won't trick us. It's, there could be people who honestly believe that they're perceiving a past life, but you don't remember everything you learned and where and how. So, you take, for example, past life regressions.
Yeah.
There have been cases where they traced like very detailed facts back to a person, but that is incredibly rare. So you can't really take an adult, even a teenager, having a past life regression very
maybe too
seriously.
Because kids haven't forgotten. Like I can't remember what I was doing when I was 3 or 4 years old, or 5 or 6. And the transference, the past life memory is still fresh in their mind. Maybe that's why the kids are more interesting to study.
It's just that they can't, from a factual basis. Although, yes, a lot of kids tend to forget the past lives around 5 years old. That's kind of yeah, I have a lot of memories of those ages, and there's one, two things I'm like, maybe I never would have thought of it past life related till I started delving in, but nothing that's worthy of studying or nothing that could be called evidence based. But if you're to do, say, a past life regression, we at this point as adults have so much knowledge of history. We've tons of it stored unconsciously.
What is past life? I know the answer, but there are people that don't. Like, what is
Mhm.
past life regression?
Oh, yeah. So that's when you're taken into a meditation and you're taken back to remember past lives, and mixed feelings about it. I mean,
Hypnotized meditation.
hypnotized, a type of like deep hypnosis. Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's very interesting. I'd be, I cannot say whether it's people are genuinely remembering past lives or parts of them, or maybe remembering parts and filling in with like details of what we know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you started researching, talking to the experts. Did you talk to the people doing the with these kids, working with the kids?
No, I didn't. I just read every single thing by Dr. Jim Tucker and Dr. Ian Stevenson. And I found they were part of a division, the Division of Perceptual Studies, which is a research group at the University of Virginia. And they're studying all this kind of weird stuff, for lack of a better word. And so once you kind of find one of them, you start finding them all. So I was finding at the University of Virginia, they were studying things such as near-death experiences, which is when people pass away and then are medically resuscitated and come back, and they have remarkable, I mean, it's insane, some of the stories. Some are memories, some have, experiences that they call in the research veridical NDEs, which means they're verified. Like maybe they floated to another completely different part of the hospital where they saw their family and overheard what their family was saying. I mean, just that's a whole
Yeah.
intense body of research. And then also through this, I found that there were people researching psychic mediums, including well, they're doing some of that at the University of Virginia, but the main group I found, because once you kind of find one of them, you find them all. And I found the Windbridge Institute, which was founded by Dr. Julie Beischel and her husband, Mark Bacuzzi. And Dr. Beischel was a pharmacologist, very like logic, data driven. And after the passing of her mother, when Dr. Beischel was only 23, she kind of, not expecting anything from it, got a medium reading, and it blew her away. And so, long story short, she's the founder of the Windbridge Institute, which conducts up to quintuple blinded studies on mediums. And I've mainly researched mediums just because they're the ones that are the most accessible. You can't really contact and join, in the laboratory experiments very easily, but you can always get a medium reading. So
I read on your website or in your book description the word seance too. What's the difference
yes,
between a seance or so special? It's you do a seance with a psychic, right?
yes, psychic mediums and psychics are actually different, which I can explain.
Yeah, tell me the difference.
Okay, well, all the theory is, or the knowledge at this point is, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. A psychic reading is a reading, let's say someone was to sit down with you. This is what you think of when you think of, like, I think most people think of this. So, like, they tell you about your future, your
Yep.
dating life, your health, money. It's about you and your life and energy of a living person, or life plan of a living person. It's reading somebody's mind. Mediumship is communicating with a non-local consciousness, someone who's passed away.
Okay.
So, yeah,
And
so
then what's
it's
a
actually
seance?
okay. So a seance is a very specific type of mediumship. It's one medium will usually be there with a group of people, and they'll try to call in people who've passed away, and they'll be
Oh, there has to be a
it's
group of
usually
people. The difference. or one difference?
Yeah, well, that's one difference because you can go to a group medium reading, and that's where you see them on the platform and they're reading. They'll pick like some people in the audience to read. That's not a seance. Seance, it would be, sitting in a circle, and they're channeling in people who've passed away or spirits. And I mean, the seances I've seen were completely fraudulent. So I can't personally speak from a genuine one, but I've heard people who've assessed that there are genuine ones out there. The ones I saw were not. But like objects will move. Yeah.
Don't do a
Yeah.
seance, but a medium's okay. A psychic's okay, but not a seance in your experience. Too fixed or fraudulent or just not real.
The one I saw, I witnessed one person who conducted 2 seances. I did not think there was even an ounce of genuineness to them. I've heard other people go to seances that I respect have concluded the same thing. But there are a few people I highly respect in this field who have gone to other seances and they've concluded they're genuine. But that's very rare.
The psychic mediums, they do have validity, you believe? There are some valid psychic mediums.
Yes, I think there are a small percent that are able to do what they claim. The thing is, if the answer is that our consciousness is not created by a brain, but downloaded by it, that means all of us have some form of communication. Psychic mediums that are really good are able to do it at a whole other level than the average person. And I think, like everything else, we have varying degrees of abilities, but it just sort of means it's how our
the way
consciousness.
I picture the non-localized memories is it just picture a filing cabinet floating in the sky, like the cloud, like Apple Cloud.
Like the cloud. Yeah.
I go to the cloud, that's where I store my memories. Well, somebody else can do it too if I let them. So I give permission to a valid psychic medium, and she goes into my cloud. I die, my body's gone. My data's still in the cloud. Next body I go into, I'm still using the same cloud until I decide someday, you know what, I'm going to change my password, delete my files. And one of my theories is in terms of the past life, when I go to hit the delete, because I'm like, you know what, I've got too many, kind of like Marlon Brando told Johnny Depp a long time ago. Dude, you got to be careful how many jobs you take. You can only keep so many actors in your head until you're going to kind of forget who you are and kind of lose yourself. So maybe we purge. And when we purge, maybe it's one little photo or something in the filing cabinet, the cloud. It's the same cloud. We still have our same cloud, our consciousness. But maybe we didn't empty the wastebasket completely. We go to the next body, somehow, what's that little picture of that photo? That's one of my, was to paint a picture in a black box, like, how's it work?
Interesting. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I picture it similar to the cloud too. But
you can go find you got to go to the speed of light or this, or that, or do the math to it. I'm just trying to, in my head, lay a foundation, draw it on paper, and then build it or explain it. So
yeah,
where were we? Mediumship. So maybe they get into the cloud, and then also you've done some like haunted houses, photographs, electronic EMF stuff like that too, in terms of ghost and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. I took a class on that. I haven't actually attended any, and I met with a ghost hunter and learned about it, and I took a class on it. So I'm knowledgeable, but not an expert, and I haven't had a personal experience on a physical ghost hunt, though. I'd be curious to see, but
did you find anything, since you did a lot of research, starting with time travel and then thinking about it, and then with the kids, with past lives.
Right.
Your first hit gut reaction on this ghost stuff, was there any like, oh, that makes sense, time travel, or it was just kind of like, maybe that's not worth spending the time on? What would you think about your experience, even though it was limited?
With So it was pretty early on that I learned about it. At this point, I think there's definitely something to it. A lot is fake. The EMF meters, no one really knows. I don't think those are as strong as people are saying, from is my understanding.
I have
No
them
one
all,
really
and
knows.
they don't
Oh,
work.
do you? They don't work.
There's
Okay.
always an alternative
Yeah,
explanation, and
that's what I was getting to.
so they say, "Oh, look,
Hmm.
the thing goes, yeah, your refrigerator just cycled. And it's picking up the field from the wire in your wall that's current's flowing now. It just turned on a field, or your neighbors have a light bulb on or something, and there's net current on the wires. Yeah, there's always an explanation for the Gauss meters.
That's from yeah.
Yeah, and the cameras, infrared cameras too. It's like, oh, look at that
Hmm.
heat pattern or that cold pattern.
Hmm.
They don't even know how that instrument is working or reading. It's an anomaly that they can't explain, but
Right.
it's not a ghost. I've never found one with the. But I do have I do believe there are people that can see ghosts.
I think so too. Yeah. And there's a difference. There's two different kinds. This I thought was interesting, and this makes sense. I I learned about this from Lloyd Arbach, and he's probably going to kill me if he hears this because I can't remember which is which. One is a haunting and one is an apparition. I believe the haunting is the one where it's not actually conscious. It's like a stored experience. Like if someone sees a repetitive, like you'll hear of someone seeing a ghost and they'll say, we see a lady in a black dress walking along a cliff every night at the certain time. The thought is she's not actually consciousness. It's like a recording
Hmm.
of
A
like a
movie.
place memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching a recording of a Zoom, the person isn't there, as opposed to an apparition, which is an actual consciousness. Like that you can communicate and interact with. And those seem to be the two different types. And yeah, again, according the meters seem to be pretty
It's
irrelevant.
interesting. I had never, don't think I'd ever had somebody or read that or the distinction you just mentioned, because the people that see ghosts, I'm not sure if they know if they're seeing a repeat pattern. I think actually probably most of it is eating. For example, the natives in New Mexico, where I spend a lot of time in Santa Fe, New Mexico. One time I got off the plane in Los Angeles, business trip. Guy in a suit there, real professional, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm from Santa Fe." I don't know how it came out of his mouth because this is not something you talk about with strangers. But he lives in New Mexico, and I think he works on a reservation. He's like, "Yeah, we see kind of like the Trail of Tears. We see natives from the past, and how they're suffering and they're being going through some rough times. Well, that was way in the past. They must be seeing a repeat, an apparition, as you said, right?"
I would think so if they keep seeing the same thing and there's no interaction and it's the repetitive thing. I mean, I don't know for sure, but yeah.
Versus the
And
ghost. And trying to think of
mhm.
how many people I've known that I think have actually spoken to real ghosts. I think not less or nobody comes to mind. What about you?
Oh. Yeah, some of the researchers like Lloyd Arbach, who's done, you know, he's the one I took the class from, and he's kind of one of the expert parapsychologists. He's also a mentalist, a stage mentalist, so he is pretty good at assessing fakery. And he's had experiences that there's one
He
I'm gonna
talks
forget.
to
Oh,
ghosts or spirits or
he,
past.
he's not a medium, no, but he's worked with mediums, and he has concluded on some of his research that there are times it was a conscious, discarnate as opposed to like a place
Yeah.
recording. So,
I would think it's all possible. I mean,
mhm,
most kind of rare, like you're seeing a rare leopard, snow leopard in on Mount
mhm.
Everest or something. Not an everyday thing. Otherwise, the world would be chaos. But everything's got to be possible once in a while, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I mean, again, a little bit going back to time, if when we're looking at the planets in deep space now, we're looking millions of years into the past. So there's some way experiences are stored that we don't
Hmm.
fully understand. Like if somebody's looking at our planet right now and they're at a certain distance, they're seeing the dinosaurs. And
Right. The sun, like if on another planet right
yeah,
now, if there were dinosaurs, they're gone now because we're seeing the sunlight, the starlight, a million years after that star made the light. But on a planet near that star a million years ago, if there was a dinosaur, we're seeing light from when that light was with the dinosaur on the dinosaur planet. Yeah, it's kind of mind
it's
bending. And
crazy. Yeah.
then you're like, I just got to pay my taxes and get to work today on time so I don't get fired. And kind of like, how's this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Back to your dad. Did you ever in all this ever have any medium connection or in yeah,
Yes.
tell me about that.
Multiple.
Oh, multiple.
So multiple. So I started, I started reading Dr. Julie Beischel and her up to quintuple blinded studies on psychic mediums. And I'd been reading about research. For example, there's Dr. Jeff Tarrant, and I'd mentioned the difference between psychic readings versus medium readings. Well, he scans mediums' brains while they're doing psychic readings and medium readings, and the brainwave patterns are different.
He's got electrodes on their head or something like that. You mean like
Yep.
technically, scientifically? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, like
Oh, so he can see
neuroscientific.
like the alpha, beta, whatever meditation or just brain
Gamma.
activity. Interesting.
Yes, yeah. And there is a difference in their brainwave patterns when they're doing psychic readings versus medium readings. And the
Hmm.
brainwave patterns, anyway, are very like abnormal in many ways when they're doing readings at all. And there are some consistencies among mediums. I'm not a neuroscientist, it's above my pay grade to go on.
I'm gonna go do like how to tell if this is fake or not. Can you put these electrodes on your head while I do while
Yes.
I'm getting a reading from you, and I have a chart I can compare it to the doctor's study you just mentioned, and nope, you're not going there.
No,
Nope, can't be real.
no,
Oh
no,
wow, this
yeah.
is good. I'm gonna put this down, and
Mhm.
that's my engineer
It's
brain in me thinking like solutions.
it,
Oh.
oh my God, no, it's so fascinating. Please. I mean,
Okay, so
I would
sorry,
love
your
to come
dad.
up with
This is
experiments all day.
serious.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. Yeah. So I was doing all this research and I was like, there's got to be a catch. I mean, there's just no way this can't be true. It makes no sense. Consciousness could exist outside of a brain. There's nothing that makes sense about that. So I was like, I've got to see for myself. And I felt really weird about getting a medium reading, but I first of all got on the list for one that has a very long wait list, and she was certified by the Windbridge Institute, Dr. Julie Beischel's institute. And that comes up a little later in another way. But while waiting, I went to an event, got the name of a medium who was not certified by Windbridge. And I was like, oh, this one's going to be terrible, but like, I'll go see. She's not studied by scientists. She blew me away. And I hide my identity when I get medium readings, fake name, have friends pay. I mean, hers was in person, so I paid cash, but there was no way she was like Googling me and sending my face through the internet there was just no way. And, I checked her ears to see if she had an assistant watching me on camera, Googling,
Wow.
but to see if she had a little earpiece, I mean, the stuff she got was also not Googleable, So, and then I just got multiple medium readings, some terrible, some great. And then I was like, I've got to like volunteer in some of this research. I have to see what's going on. And I went to an event of that first medium from Wimbridge. Her name's Laura Lynn Jackson. I went to her event and I asked her, I mean, first of all, she was very patient because I sat there asking skeptical questions the whole workshop. And then I asked her about a place to volunteer. Wimbridge is in Arizona and I'm in New York, and I spent a part of the time in LA as well. And she suggested I volunteer for a place called the Forever Family Foundation. And that was one of the most life-changing things
Hmm.
because it was founded by a couple, Fran and Bob Ginsburg. Sadly, Fran Ginsburg passed away in 2020, and she became like my second mom, Bob like my second dad.
Where is it in
And
Arizona?
the Windbridge Institute,
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to double check. I
I
believe
grew up
it's
in Phoenix. I
for
spent a lot of
Tucson.
time in
Okay.
Sedona, and then of course Tucson, and just curious. I had not heard of it before, so I was wondering.
Oh, you got to check it. It's fascinating. I believe it's in Tucson. So, but I'd have to look up exactly. So, yeah. So I start.
You had a lot of cool experiences while you worked there or volunteered there.
I didn't volunteer with Windbridge. I volunteered with a place called the Forever Family that was based out of New York. And they do similar, like Dr. Julie Beischel, they collaborate with her. They used science-based protocols to certify psychic mediums and assure they can't cheat, that they don't get general information like, oh, you have a grandmother who passed who loves you. And through that, I got multiple readings. And I mean, the things they knew, like I can give an example from the first reading. And I mean, some of the readings were terrible, I have to be honest. But
is there
some,
anything
like,
you can tell me on the podcast that they won't Google and search all your podcasts to find some secret, or you kind of the tricks now that you can give us an example or tell us a
yeah,
story?
I mean, at this point, so much is out there in my books. I have my podcast. I mean, I still get readings where they get stuff that I haven't written, and I disguise some things. But this medium knew, the first one, for example, knew so much. She knew that my cat had just passed. We called her she was an exceptionally sweet cat. She said, my dad's holding my cat who just passed, the sweet one. She, one thing that was really funny at the end is, I would always say to my dad, oh, I love you. And he'd be like, okay, and bye. And I'd be like, wait, aren't you going to say you love me? And he would say, you know what I think of you. And the medium asked him at the end, should I say, do you want me to say, I love you? Do you have any final messages like that? And he's like, yeah, she knows what I think of her. And that was kind of amazing. Also, if a medium told me my dad was saying, I love you, that would mean nothing to me. That's just totally
that would
meaningless to
just
me
be
coming
like
from
what
a
they say to
medium.
everybody. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Then you felt
And that was
connection to
part
your
of it.
dad.
Yeah. I mean, and it was just multiple readings where they got information from him and other people and animals. And I think it was even more than just feeling a connection to my dad. It's it goes so much more powerful than that. This is the most profound evidence of our consciousness that could possibly, it's just the most profound, mind-blowing research that could exist. I mean, this shows there's life after death. That goes so much past my connecting with my dad,
I was about to ask you, at least in the notes when I was looking at your background, is this not true anymore? Because I wrote it down where in the end you came to the conclusion, this is a quote, an old quote from you maybe, we need more scientific investigation and skeptical analysis of the existing ghost photography, haunted mansion, electronic voice phenomenon, et cetera, et cetera. It almost sounded like you weren't certain, but you're pretty convinced.
I'm not positive, but we definitely need a lot more serious research. Oh, 100% of mediumship, survival of consciousness. I think it's highly probable. And to go from thinking there's zero to thinking it's highly probable is life changing.
I'm gonna imagine I'm you for a moment, but I mean I'm me, but like my parents died, my mom or dad.
Okay.
And I'm picturing myself having your experience where they tell me they love me or goodbye in a way that only they could know, and especially my cat name. And I'd feel really good. But what you're saying is then afterwards that would go away, kind of like a love relationship that, I got over you, or I don't, like it passed. Your skepticism came back again. Is that what you're saying?
It's well, after the first one, certainly. I was just there's no way. I mean, it's so goes against so much of our day-to-day perceptions to think there's an afterlife. And I had been raised my whole life, the only form of an afterlife I'd heard of was traditional religion, which, I respect people's beliefs. That's fine. But with all due respect, there isn't much logic to it. And, no disrespect, but if you're going to go at it from a science fact-based perspective, it's not something's, if you're going for just logic and fact, you're going to get much comfort off of. So it's you see a color that doesn't
So
exist
you
on the
weren't really
spectrum.
convinced, meaning I think I misinterpreted your experience. You didn't tell me this. I made it up. I assumed when you heard the medium tell you these things, you really Oh, my dad speaking to me. You were still skeptical?
Yeah, I think part of me at the moment I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing," but I didn't walk away and say, "Okay, I'm
I see.
100% convinced." It's like drops in the bucket of
Hmm.
evidence and
You
moving.
really are a hard
Yeah,
sell. It's good. I mean, because you
yeah,
can get fooled pretty easy, especially with technology these days. All the tricks they do with,
right.
yeah, facial recognition and the animation
Yeah.
AI, creates anything you want. Yeah, make stuff up. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So,
what's in the future for you then in terms of any new strategies? You've done mediums, you kind of beat that to death. Is there any new like things you found, experts that to build the case to keep investigating? Are you still investigating?
I'm still investigating. I'm still actually very involved with the Forever Family Foundation, and a lot of the mediums have become a lot of my good friends. So I'm pretty involved in that world still. I just think there needs to be a lot more experimentation, especially as technology gets better. I'm studying a lot more about near death experiences lately. I'm hoping as brain scanning technology gets better and better, and even what we have now, I think more scanning of mediums' brains,
Have you
more.
ever considered, or if you did, tell me what you've done to go. One thought I have is, why don't I teach myself how to be a psychic medium and try to do what they do?
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone to a few classes. I've had a few really weird experiences with that. I can share a couple, but
Yeah,
I can't. Sure.
I've been that
I
grateful
can.
help because that's what it's like. It's like the Bible and religion. The priest is saying, God told me. Well, I'd like to talk to God. Why? He's God. He can talk to all of us. He's not that. He's got more power. He's more powerful. Why is he picking just you? So
Right.
that's what I need to believe. So how can we do that
Yeah.
ourselves?
I think to varying degrees. I don't think I could ever do it the level of the mediums on a consistent basis,
Hmm.
but I took so once I was at the first time I actually went to the Forever Family Foundation events. It was a large convention they did. I was still really new to this research. It was in 2016. I was really investigating hardcore. I was pretty scared I was going to find the catch and figure out this was all
Not come back. He
nonsense.
took the red pill or the blue pill in the Matrix, however it goes, and not become. Do I really want
Right.
to do this? Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I was always like, especially early on, like, am I going to find the catch that shatters everything? And, I still have a little bit of worries about that, but I went to this convention and so there were about 12 mediums there and there were different tracks you could go on. It was either you were going because you lost somebody, you were attending because you were a medium yourself and wanted to develop your abilities. And there were three different levels. You just thought you might have some abilities all the way to you were pretty close to being a professional yourself. And so the last night there was a dinner and a lot of the people who had taken the tracks of being a medium were given an opportunity they could go try to give the mediums readings. And jokingly, one of the co-founders of Forever Family Foundation was like, Liz, why don't you go try to do it? And I was like, right, right. Like I barely even believe that stuff. And then Lloyd Arbuck, who I'd mentioned earlier, was there, the one I'd taken some classes with at the Rhine, including on ghost hunting. And I also took a class on psychic abilities with him, just learning more, not develop little bits of developing them yourself, but also a lot of like the scientific aspects behind it, and also learning about cold reading, which is a fake technique.
That's the word that's in my head right now
Yeah.
because I've done cold readings with strangers just as an
Hmm.
experiment, not to try to connect with ghosts. And it's
Yeah.
fascinating if you just open your mouth and speak what comes into your head about a total stranger. Like, I think you went to school here, were born here, and this is what you do for work. And you literally get out of your like, don't filter it, just let it come out. I went around the table one time. This was at a bar just to meet strangers,
Hmm.
to three
Yeah.
people, and I was like, "Whoa, I gotta go sit down." That was
Weird.
weird. And because they're like, this is, you're right. They're like, who are you? I'm like, I'm just playing a game.
Yeah.
So that's cold reading.
That's actually no, cold reading is a
Oh,
technique. It's a specific word. I get what you're
okay.
saying. Like you're just reading someone cold. Like cold reading's actually cheating. I mean,
Hmm.
or it's entertainment. Like
Hmm.
if you were to hire like an entertainment mind reader and they weren't pretending they could really do it and
Hmm.
they sit down and they'll read, that's fine. It's either deceptive or it's entertainment, depending on the person doing it. But it's faking it. It's like where you read a person based on logic, like, oh, you've lost a grandmother. And, or an example is you see a woman come in and like she's not wearing a wedding ring and there's like, uh, tan line
Yeah.
over where wedding ring would be, and you see her wearing it around her neck. I mean, that's very basic, but someone would be like, oh, I'm sensing you lost a husband. It's like,
Hmm.
it's cheating basically is cold reading. And I think if you're researching this stuff, it's good to learn about. It's also fascinating psychologically. I haven't studied it that much. I'd like.
Tell me
Yes.
about when you got your chance.
So I was like, okay, well, I'll get up and do a cold reading. Like I was going to practice the technique I learned with Lloyd, the cheating, and it was going to be funny and it was going to be a joke. And I went up first to this woman whose book I read. I was feeling really weird too. I was feeling like almost like all these
No
waves.
pressure, right? There's an
Like
audience.
that. Scared because it was just supposed to be a joke. I wasn't like planning to be good. So I wouldn't have felt any pressure. It was like funny.
Okay.
So and I wasn't even sure I believed anyone had abilities fully at this point. And I certainly, I mean, it didn't even cross my mind in a million years I could ever do something like this. So it was going to be a joke. Like you lost your great grandmother. Like I have someone like a great grandfather with like John here, named John here. Like someone's going to claim that.
Yeah.
So it was like a row of 12 mediums. I was doing that as a joke, but I was feeling like weird, like all these waves kind of around. And I just attributed it to, like I'd been in such deep grief. And this was a really like the first time in a long time I'd been in like a big social group. I just thought it was like kind of brain neurons healing. And, you know, so I was starting to do the very general cold reading to the group of the 12 mediums. Like I'm getting someone has like a grandfather, great grandfather, their name begins with J, John. A few of them are like, haha, me. And then I'd read one of their books. So I went over to that woman and was like giving a few things from her book. And then I got like really like kind of nervous. I was like, wait, I don't want to like, what if I say something like, I don't want to like say something from her book that's personal, or like to make light of a loss, that's horrible. So I was like, because I was saying things from her book that had nothing to do with a loss, and I wouldn't have ever like made light of a genuine loss. So I was like kind of suddenly frozen for a moment, and this is when it got so weird. I just started feeling all these waves, and I do not know why I did this. I walked over to one of the mediums, didn't know him at all at this point, and I felt like all the waves move in a weird way through me. Like I felt them all congeal in my heart and explode and like kind of explode. And I was like, did you lose someone from a heart attack? Yes. And then I felt them all move to my brain and explode in a part of my brain. I was like, did you lose someone from a brain tumor? I was like, no, it's like kind of exploding. That would be an aneurysm. He's like, yes. And so I was getting information like that. I mean, it wasn't so specific.
It
Like
makes
to
it makes me anyhow a little more forgiving about the fake. The mediums are like, oh yeah, did you have a friend with the letter J that died? What? Because it sounds like, to be honest, it's not that clear all the time.
Well, I'm not a medium at all. So the first part was a joke when I was doing that. But yes, having the experiential experience did make me, first of all, being like, I have never experienced anything like this in my life. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast, by the way, or do you prefer not?
I try not to, but I'll filter it.
Okay.
I haven't heard you
Um,
swear so far. You're
yeah,
doing
well, the
good.
title of my book, yeah. So I was just like, what the, like, what the F? And
Yeah.
it was so weird because it was like a sensorial experience and it made me be like, okay, something tangible is happening here. And this is why mediums are saying, I feel this. And it did make me more forgiving when they weren't just getting fact, fact, fact.
And it's a
And
language too. Like, how do you translate that feeling that's authentic to the word? Like you said, like, what if I didn't know the word aneurysm? Like, I never heard that
right,
word before. I'm not a doctor. Like, I haven't had anybody die, a friend, a local that of aneurysm. I
right,
don't even know what that means. And what if I'm wrong? What if I think aneurysm's this and it's not? And I say aneurysm and they go, no,
right.
yeah. The language connection seems like uh, um, a potential for mistranslation, or why they're trying to take a moment and ask for more information before they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm getting this.
Yeah, yeah. So I was more like willing to collaborate with mediums, not just like pour everything out and give it away, but like
It sounds
I was more
cool.
understanding. It was
You're
so
gifted.
cool. I mean, I'm not, but I can't do this 99% of the
Okay.
time. But it was really, it was such a cool experience. Then I took a class. I've taken class a lot of times just to explore. I don't get stuff most of the time, but there was one other time I did, and it was really amazing. Like it feels different. You feel all these waves around you.
It
It's
sounds
really
cool.
fascinating. Yeah. Oh
Yeah, it
yeah.
sounds like something like instead of practicing the guitar every day, I might go, for 15 minutes, I'm going to do my psychic exercises because I want that feeling, or maybe I don't. Maybe I
Yeah.
like living
Yeah.
here and not taking the blue pill so much or the red pill, but
Yeah.
you still do that. What else do you do?
Um,
Continuing your research.
yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I still read a lot. I have my podcast where I talk to researchers.
Your
I'm
podcast,
work
by the way, I'm going to give you a plug for listeners who are interested in this topic. It's the sound quality and the video quality is really good, and your guests are really good. They're experienced people. They've,
Oh,
near
thank you
deathers.
so much.
Yeah, you have some good guests on your shows for the topic.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, it's fascinating. So I'm constantly learning from them. I'm going to a conference called the IONS Conference next week, International Association for Near Death Studies. I still get medium readings. I still go to Forever Family. I'm trying to do like out of body exercises, and I'm trying to do EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena. I actually haven't started that, but I'm planning to try where like you leave your phone on at a certain time recording and try to get like you set up a same time every day and you try to get someone.
The Liz, I think one thing that just came to my mind though is you got to remember to live. I'm sure you do. Take the dog for
I
a walk,
do.
get coffee with your friends, go to a movie, a concert, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to die and
Yeah.
go, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this is real. Now what?
Yeah. Right.
Oops,
Right.
that's why I wasn't supposed to remember my past life. I spent my whole life trying to remember it. Just kind of
Yeah.
wasted a life. So
Yeah. I think it's also important, like at least for me to talk about it in a very grounded, like way, not because a lot of times like people talk about this, it isn't very connected to
there are a
like
lot of people who just say this is
human
nonsense,
worth.
period, and you die, you're squashed like a bug and you're dead and that's it. And
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
yeah, in
Yeah,
my experience, the smarter that people think they are, the more closed-minded they are. Anywho,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's understandable why a lot of people are close-minded about this, but I think most of them haven't really bothered to delve into it. And I mean, I understand that there's a lot of things in the world to delve into. You don't have to be an expert in everything. And then, they're hearing less logical reasons to think this. And, sometimes people using their, belief.
yeah, so speaking of people in general, I'm thinking out loud now. There's religion.
Mhm.
I had a thought about, yeah, people aren't so interested in this topic, but there's a lot of people that are scared of dying, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not,
I
but
okay.
but in your but is this true? A lot of people, I mean, I read about it. A lot of people are afraid of
Uh,
death.
Side of it before. I'm still scared of losing loved ones, but I'm not scared of myself dying the same way anymore, aside from like physical instincts. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons people avoid it. I think, also there's a lot of things worth being interested in this world. Like you can only use your time around so much, but it would be nice if this research was more like accessible. And I mean, I think it's something people want to avoid. I used to at least want to avoid the topic because there were two things I'd heard of: atheism or religion with like God and heaven. And of those two, to me, atheism, I mean, I'm still actually an atheist, but materialism, I guess, which means consciousness created by a brain. When you die, that's it. That made a lot more sense to me than
You
like
know, actually,
religion.
I googled the word atheism because
Mhm.
you mentioned it on your website, I think, and
Yeah.
being a rocket scientist or the analytical guy, uh,
Mhm.
when I hear a word and I try to go, what does it mean? Well, I don't know what is atheism? I mean, I know what it means, right? People say, well, I don't believe in God. But what does that mean? Because that you're using another definition, God. And how can you not believe in something? It's like a double negative. If it doesn't exist, how can you not believe in it?
Okay. I have
You get where
never,
I'm going with this.
I do.
So the definition is one who disbelieves, mean it, or lacks belief in existence of God. So can see the lack belief. I'm just still trying to wrap my head around the definition because how can you not
Yeah.
believe? It's like the Easter Bunny. If you say, do you believe in the Easter Bunny? I would say probably no. But that's very specific. That's like saying, do you believe in Jesus? And I could say yes or no. To just say, yeah, I don't believe in the existence of God is kind of vague to me. Yeah, the definition
I
of that.
guess I've never seen any evidence of an existence of a God. I've seen evidence of existence that our consciousness survives, but
Yeah.
I do. If someone asks me, do I think there's a God, especially one as defined in like biblical terms? No,
Yeah,
I
thank you.
don't.
That's what I was looking for. Define God, because to my dog, I am God most of the
Mhm.
time. He doesn't listen to me like I'm
Right.
God, just like a lot of people don't listen to God and they still smoke and cheat on their wives and on their kids and everything else, or even worse, hurt people. But, the God is a relative, right? Aliens could be God to people who,
Mhm.
or tangent. Sorry.
No worries.
Um, I guess what I mean is I don't believe you're truly an atheist when you say you're one. Is
I guess again, that'd be how you define atheist, but yeah, I
yeah.
don't think there's a
You
God.
don't
And I
believe in a
don't
religious
think we're
figure. You don't believe in a religious figure as being
and
God.
I don't think there's one higher consciousness that creates everything. I think we're all just individuals,
Hmm.
and it just seems to be our consciousness is downloaded by a brain rather than created by one, most likely. But I don't see anything related to anything that could be called a god in any of this, of like one individual creator, planner.
You put it a good
So
way. When people ask me, what do you believe happens after you die? Do you believe in God?
mhm.
My current for me is I believe whatever happens is what you believe will happen. Just like the common saying a lot of self-help people use every day in life here on earth, you create your own reality. Like, what if you do that after death too? Why would it change if you're creating your own reality in life and you're telling me that's true? You make your own reality. Why wouldn't I make it in life too? Which means I better not die until I get my reality straightened out because it's going to carry over.
Yeah, some of our own reality here, but not all of it. If you're sick or you break your leg or you're born into certain circumstances than others. I mean, that's reality. You can't change that, but you can change aspects. You can change your circumstances in many ways. I mean,
What I
some
mean
people have
is
more work.
I'm a bad person. I'm going to hell.
Yes.
Um, a lot of people think they're not worthy or bad or did something unworthy and literally that is one of their beliefs they hold. And
Hmm.
when they die, yeah, they're going to carry that belief over with them, that belief, to which they might actually create a hell for themselves when they don't, because that's what they believe. Following your logic of rating your the way you were phrasing it a moment ago.
Oh, yeah. So I don't necessarily exactly think that. I mean, I do think probably if it's similar to here, you can make it life more hellish there. Like people can make things miserable here for themselves. And most of us have some things that are bad and some are good, And but it seems like when I like just from the research on near death experiences, it seems kind of like what happens is what happens. And I'm probably as you go, and it doesn't seem that tied into belief to an extent. Some people will see certain religious figures based on their belief set. And that seems to be just how
Tell
you
me in all
process
your
it.
in all your experiences. I just realized how many people you must run into that have cool stories to tell. Tell me
Oh
about that. How
yeah.
many people near death experience? What's one memorable near death or that that actually saw their God that you know of?
Yeah.
No?
I mean, some will use the word God. Okay, here's an example of one that Dr. Melvin Morse, one of the researchers, shared on my podcast, I thought was really interesting. And this is why I think when people use words like God, it's interpretation based on what you believe. Like for example, people who super believe in angels might interpret clouds as angels. Like, yeah, and so a lot of it's very, what's your interpretation? So Dr. Melvin Morse actually specializes a lot with children who've had near death experiences. And there was a little boy, and he passed away and was resuscitated. And he came back and he said, "Oh my God, I met a wizard on the other side." And he described this like
Nice.
playful experience. Yeah. And then a year later, he describes man with a beard. Dr. Melvin Morris talked to him and he said, "Oh, I met Jesus on the other side." So clearly he was in a family that believed in Christianity and, believed Jesus was a religious figure and told him, "Oh, no, no, honey, you met Jesus." So a lot of it is your cultural interpretation. So I thought that story was pretty interesting. And, if I could probably guess who that was, it was like a great great grandfather or something, or, someone in the family. And if I could guess, we don't know, or like someone who's kind of a person, I
Well,
don't know enough,
I was
but
keeping a real open mind and thinking he really met Jesus.
I'm
Yeah,
Jesus from my
how do I know?
yeah, I mean, from my
That's not to say I
perspective,
believe in Jesus, but that doesn't mean like, yeah, I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it seems like because people have such like interpretations of religion, and they're
Yeah,
probably gonna see what
influence him to
they,
where they talked him into
huh.
believing he saw what they think he saw.
As a child, of course, I think he was like 5 years
He's
old,
damaged now forever. So, Liz, is
Uh,
there anything else you wanted to add?
yeah, well, one thing that
Yeah.
yeah, it's been so fun. I think one thing I want to add is, especially like people who maybe have a hard time thinking this makes any sense, is this is one thing that really has helped me too, is neuroscientists who are convinced consciousness is created by the brain still can't explain it. It's just as much of a mystery
Oh, that's a
and
great
an
point. It's a two-way
understanding.
street. You
Yeah.
say this is impossible, non-localized. It's no, that's silly. And yet, tell the rest of the story. Like you can't actually prove where memories are stored then, right?
Right. Well, it's just our brain is unconscious mass and matter that comes together and fires in a certain way. I mean, there's no inherent consciousness in the matter of our brain. So, how is it that when it comes together, it creates the complex level of consciousness? I mean, it's not just consciousness to survive and reproduce like we believe amoebas have. It's like love and philosophy. And so that's just as weird and inexplicable, makes just as little sense as to think it's not.
Back to what I think you or I interpreted what you were saying is there's no scientific evidence on how we store memories. Think about this. If we were to store a memory, would it be like you store it on the computer in bits and bytes? How would it be stored? If it was
Right.
in bits and bytes, some people who don't understand how computers work, you have to take a real image or a photo and you convert it to ones and zeros. Your computer stores literally a electrical signal, a charge on or off, bits and bytes, ones and zeros. You all seen the Matrix, ones and zeros. That's true. Everything's coded, which means you actually have to code it, which means in your body would have to be a coder, just like on your computer that converts analog to digital, to store it in a cell, which would be a salt crystal. Again, ones and zeros, little salt crystals in your body someplace. It would have just like your hard drive on your computer, maximum amount of storage. Okay. Maybe that's possible, but then you'd have to decode it. Now I want to look at that memory. Just like on your computer, your hard drive, it'd have to run through the decoder. If you're listening to a song on your computer, it has to take those bits and bytes, convert them back into sound waves. So your body would have to have a mechanism to do that. It's a fact. They do not have any explanation on how that level of technology actually works in the brain. Right, Liz?
Yeah. I mean, I think they know a little bit about memories. That's a little above my pay grade of like, I'm not a neuroscientist, but they don't.
Yeah, but it's like it's like saying, well, I know my computer. If I hit play, I watch a movie. That's what they know. That's all they know.
Right.
They don't know anything.
Yeah.
They don't know the computer, how it stores stuff. So it works both ways. You have to remember that sometimes. Like when we say, oh, life after death or God, or this is not possible. And you're like, we don't even know. I mean, to me, even being an engineer, if you ever see the math on how basic radio works, let alone color TV or Wi-Fi, the math and the physics on how something just goes through space at the speed of light, by the way, Liz, these radio waves. And you just get the picture on the other side on your computer. It's mind-blowing. We take it for granted. It's like that. Yeah. Well, that kind of science you can explain your TV, but they do not have an explanation for how the body stores memories the same way they know how to run a TV. And a lot to learn on both ways still.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I think I interrupt you a little bit. Anything else you want to add?
That's pretty much it. I guess, the where to find me. I don't know.
Her book is cool looking cover. Guys in a skeleton like he just died. Think about it, you just died.
Yeah.
What just happened? Her book is WTF, What the F Just Happened. A sciencey skeptic explores grief, healing, and evidence of an afterlife. She has her own podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
Also, my second book just came out too, which is WTF Just Happened. A sciencey skeptic investigates even more evidence of an afterlife and fights for justice with her dead dog. That one just came out last week. And then my podcast is WTF Just Happened, all about the afterlife. No woo.
Nice. And it'll be in my show notes too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Thanks for being on my show.
Oh, it was fascinating. Sorry?
Good to know you're still investigating. As like I asked you, if you're moving on to other stuff, still sounds like you're still having fun with it too. It's good.
I am. Thank you so much for having me and for a great conversation.
Thanks, Liz. Have a great day.
You too.